Good evening, class. Today, we're going to be talking about online courses and the effectiveness for learning and or the role of personality and the specific skills to us. So personal story, being an extrovert during this time of going through online courses and classes was a difficult situation for me just due to me trying to get that one-on-one connection with the teacher and really benefiting off of that. And through online classes was not the best fit for me with difficulty paying attention if you have distractions at home, like parents maybe asking you to do chores or something during a class, and them not realizing, or you're playing video games and get distracted. That's always a hard time. Technical difficulties. Um, you have issues with your screen not working or your camera not working, the teacher getting upset with that, and that's not your problem. Or if someone like the battery dies and they leave class and they get counted out absent, like that's not your fault, but no one understands it. And also just being uncomfortable in general. People can be uncomfortable just because they don't know what to do or like how to work with online classes because it's a new environment for them. Some people just don't like talking in class and much less talking in front of the whole class on max volume on their computer while showing their face can be very uncomfortable to people as well. Now I'm going to pass it to Amar.
So, with that being said, it brings us to the topic of online learning, which is a method of education where students learn in a fully virtual environment. And this could be through various meeting websites such as Zoom, Teams, or Google Meet. And as everyone knows, online learning rose drastically during the pandemic. And here are some statistics about that. So, as shown here, almost 1.4 billion children in 186 countries around the world were affected by school closures due to the pandemic. And virtual school enrollment rose to 170% of its pre-pandemic level in the school year 2020 to 2021. And then it nudged up further to 176% in the 2021-2020 school year, according to the data obtained by the 74. And the next topic here is personality. And personality describes the unique patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that distinguish a person from others. And this can be described by the trait approach, which is a way of studying personality that places emphasis on the traits of an individual as markers of personality. And this is further explained by the Big Five. The Big Five personality traits represent a range between two extremes. The first one here, openness, is how curious an individual is about the world and other people. The second one, which is conscientiousness, is defined by high levels of thoughtfulness, good impulse control, and goal-directed behaviors. The third one, which is neuroticism, is a personality trait characterized by sadness, moodiness, and emotional instability. The fourth one is agreeableness, which includes the attributes such as trust, altruism, kindness, and affection. The fifth here is extroversion, which is characterized by excitability, sociability, talkativeness, assertiveness, and high amounts of emotional expressiveness. So, how does online learning and personality relate? And we can do this by going through each of the five personality, uh, primary personality traits. So, extroverts tend to feel uneasy due to the isolated context in online learning, and they thus prefer a face-to-face or blended learning approach. Openness and agreeableness could prefer in similar online learning as it is something new that they're trying out. Learners with strong conscientiousness could arrange their learning activities in the course of the semester, and neuroticism is negatively correlated with online learning due to the fact that it's mostly about emotions. And now Chris is going to talk about the class connections.
Thanks, Amar. So moving from the background information to what connections we can actually make to the class material, I'm actually going to start with some of the problems that online learning poses before adding some depth to how some can benefit from this style of learning. The first connection I want to make is how online learning affects attention. So Gleitman says that our eyes naturally focus on stimuli in our perceptive field. And while this is helpful in everyday life, this can be extremely problematic within learning environments because it can take attention away from the lecture the student is listening to. For example, instead of being in a classroom and having little potential distractions from the professor discussing, there's a good chance that a text or other notifications may show up on a computer screen, which will overall take away attention from the lecture at hand. For example, during Zoom lessons, basic functions like the chat could distract students because it displays the message on every student's screen. And while I understand that some people mute their notifications and try and reduce this distraction, I have personally seen others and myself have been distracted during online classes in this way. And so this matters because it takes away from the second concept I want to talk about, memory. With attention being lost, a student would have overall less time to focus on and commit the different facts to short and long-term memory. This particularly affects working memory. For instance, if we think back to the number memorization activity that we did in class, it was hard enough to remember the sequence of digits when our sole focus was on doing so. However, it would become near impossible if a student was distracted during the reading of the first couple of numbers, and this is much more common to happen during online learning. However, there are some who can benefit from this style of learning. Throughout the past couple of class periods, we have talked extensively about the concepts of introversion and extroversion, where there was a common misconception regarding what traits describe these types of people. So Dr. Levin in class, and even Amar in the background information section, explained how introversion is actually the focus of intellectual energies in on oneself instead of having discomfort in social situations. By having these types of people can have distinct advantages by participating in online classes. It would directly cater to their needs by allowing them to be able to reflect in on their learning without the stress of having others around who may take away from this reflection. So online learning is obviously a very complex topic that reaches a variety of in-class concepts, and these are just the main ones. And now I'm going to pass it to Aislinn, who's going to explain a study regarding online learning.
A study was conducted on 482 students in the School of Dentistry at the University of the Pacific. The goal of the study was to see the effectiveness of online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. One group of participants took the course online, and a control group took the same course a year earlier in a face-to-face environment. The online learning environment for these students looked like live lessons via Zoom, self-paced online learning modules, or a combination of both. Students' academic success in these courses was recorded, and they were also surveyed at the end of the course and asked about their feelings toward the course and in what ways it was being administered. Students were told their responses were voluntary and anonymous, so any response given was one that wanted to be heard. Although results differed between courses, they were nearly equal responses of the preference of online instruction and in-person instruction, but a majority of the students said they enjoyed and would like to partake in online instruction in the future. The separated columns labeled D1 through 3 are just different classes in which the survey was given. The study was limited in the fact that they could not observe the same individual between the two ways of course administration, so results differed largely based on different students and their personalities, which also means that the study is not very reliable. Another downfall of the experiment is that the survey results could not be correlated with the academic progress of the student in the course, as they gave the participants anonymity from the course grade. Within the study, there was also selection bias, as not all students answered the survey because they had the choice of answering or not. Using the results of the study, I would say that these opinions on online learning by the students may be influenced or coerced by the choice of participants, as they are all of adult age getting a doctoral degree, which shows they are self-motivated enough to get a second degree. This tells us about how much of the Big Five personality traits are influential over our participants, considering that they are all driven and academically responsible. If the study was conducted on a different age group, either from a different location or even age range, the results would vary greatly. I think it would be beneficial to give this study to a different group of people, as stated before. I think we might find very different results or even similar, but we may be able to gather some kind of information on how having one of the Big Five may impact our outlook on online coursework or in-person coursework. But now I'd like to give the floor back over to Leighton.
Thank you, Aslan. And as said before, Amar went over the background information, the personality, which is the big five, the COVID's effect on online learning with the increased numbers. And Chris went over the attention with notifications, being able to lose your focus while in class, also memory was short and long term, and also introverts benefiting from online courses and classes. And Aslan went over the study with the dental school, with 80% of them still wanting to go online even after the pandemic. So online learning obviously has a lot of complexity to it, and different people have a ton of different experiences with how it affects them. We would love to hear y'all's perspectives in the comments. Bye.